is communicating research. So the communication of research can be in many forms. It can be in form of a lecture, it can be in form of a oral presentation, it can be in form of a poster, it can be in, but most of all what we are looking for is a publication out of it. So even though people say that they don't run after publication, but I know that if you have to survive in this academic world, there are two things which are very important. One is called H impact, H factor, H index, and the second is called citations. Based on that, the impact factor is calculated. Okay? How do word measure merit? Academic or your academic activities, how is it measured? So measurement right now is your H index, your citations, and your impact factor, impact. How much impact your research has done. So to get that, you have to have publications. So if I say that publications are not important and blah, 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 I'll be lying. So publications are very important. Everybody needs it. So even if you don't want to do research, you have to do it to get publications. All APs require 2 publications to become associate. All associates require 2 publications to become professor. So without publication, you will not get a promotion. And NMC clearly says what kind of publication? Original research. Now, meta-analysis is considered as original research. It is not a review. Systematic review is considered as original research. And Dr. Gopalnath was discussing this question. This question is being discussed in the High Court of Allahabad. Whether systematic review is same as a narrative review or systematic review is considered as a original article. The point is being debated. And BHU has said that they considered systematic review as an original article and narrative review they don't count for promotion. So if you are writing a narrative review, it is of no use. Okay. So the most important thing that when we talk of publication is the first thing that you should do. So I am assuming that you have done your literature search, you have extracted your data, you have done your meta-analysis, you are ready with your results, and now comes the time to put everything in the perspective and write it. So the important things, once again you have to understand that what is the topic or the research question that you are writing upon. Once again, because this will come in your title, this will also come in your abstract, and this will come in part of your introduction. So once again, you have to frame your question accordingly, and you have to make sure that that question or at least part of the PICO is included in your title or abstract or in introduction. Most important things, there are 2 things which are very important. We have taught you how to do a literature search. Now from the literature search, that you have to devise 2 things. You have to understand 2 things. One, what is the lacunae? So first of all, you will know what is available. So you did a search on a topic, you got some articles. So now you know what is available on that particular topic. What articles are available. You also know that what you are looking for. And the deficiency between what you are looking for and what is available is called the lacunae. Okay. So whenever you are framing a article or you are going to write, you have to say what is the existing literature or the existing available, what is existent at present. Second, what is not available and how your research is going to bridge that gap. This is very important. So you have to say what is available, what is not available, and how my research is bridging the gap. If what you are doing is already available, then you have to say why my research is better than what was available before. So basically what you need is a justification why your article should be published. So it is a justification why you did the research and the same justification is carried forward why it should be published. Then when you are talking about background and material, you have to decide what is important. So depending upon a topic, you have to talk about what background material you want to give. I have seen people talking about, say, incidence of the disease, starting from the incidence of the disease and then going into, if you see your review of literature, what you do? You hardly leave anything outside. But that is okay. In thesis, you have to fill 50 pages, so you have to write something. But here you have to understand that most journals has a word limit of 2,500 to 3,500. That's maximum. No journal will take an article more than 3,500 articles. So you have to economize on your words. So you have to be very careful, think before what you are going to write, because 2,500 words is not too many of the words. So it basically is 4 to 5 pages, that's all. 500 words per page, that makes it out to be 5 pages. Not more than that you can fill on a article. So you have to choose what is relevant and you have to reject everything else. So if you're going to talk about incidents, there is no point in talking about incidents in the world, then coming down to incidents in India, then coming down to incidents in Varanasi. No point. You have to think that for whom you are writing. If your audience is people in Varanasi, talk about only Varanasi. If your audiences are global, talk global. Then don't talk about what is happening in India or what is happening in this part unless your study is something relevant to India. So if you are going to talk to your audience about India, give it in the background. But if you are going to talk about a disease or a variable which is immaterial of where it occurs, like if you are talking about treatment of diabetes, then it is not going to change in US, China or India. It's going to remain the same. So then you don't have to talk about ki nahi, in India we treat like this. In India, you will also be treating the disease as you treat in United States, because the guidelines are the same. So there will be no difference. So there is no point in talking about too many things. Be brief, give a background and decide what background is important. Now you have to understand that we have talked about research question, but we have not talked about hypothesis. And Ashish has not also, Dr. Mishra also has not talked about hypothesis. Now, every research you have to frame an hypothesis. And let me tell you that when you are doing a statistics, you are testing the null hypothesis. And null hypothesis is either rejected or accepted. So if my hypothesis is that paracetamol cures headache, my null hypothesis is paracetamol does not cure headaches. And this is what I am going to test statistically. You understand? So hypothesis is important. There has to be a hypothesis, and this hypothesis has to be made very clear in the manuscript introduction, that why this particular study has been done, what was the hypothesis, why I am doing this. So hypothesis has to come. And then organizational plan. Organizational plan doesn't differ much, but you have to be again selective, because depending upon the number of words that you can put in, you have to decide what to communicate and what not to communicate. So what you are communicating need to be accurate. Accurate means no typographical errors, no statistical errors and no numeric errors. तो आप ये नहीं कर सकते कि मैंने 1.96 टाइप करना था, वो 19.6 हो गया. No. So you have to make sure that whatever you are putting in is accurate. And that is also true for when you are doing a data extraction. It is true when you are making an Excel sheet. You have to make sure that you don't make a typographical error ever. And your sheets has to be absolutely accurate. If a data comes twice or thrice in an article, like the data is coming in the table, you made a table, you are describing the characteristics. You are writing, say gender, 50 male, 52 females. When you are describing the text, there also it should be 50, 52. If it becomes 51 or becomes 48, article will be rejected there and then. Okay. So data which is coming in the manuscript has to be consistent throughout. Whatever numbers you are taking, the numbers has to remain as it is. If the numbers are changing, okay, there are times when numbers change. There is a people lost to follow up. So you started with 200, you had 20 lost to follow up, now you have 180. Then you have to make a chart and explain that, okay, I recruited 200 people, 120 people lost to follow up, and I am left with 180 which have been analyzed. And if out of 180, if some are not analyzed, like for missing data, you have to either handle the missing data, that you have to statistically define how are you going to handle it. One way is don't count those patients when you are looking for that particular variable. So if I have 50 people with 49 people's weight recorded, I say in one patient weight was not recorded. So I have 49 and I calculate on 49. The other is there are a lot of statistical tests how you can make the missing values. It should be clear in the sense you have to understand that 90% of the people who will be reading you will not be knowing about it. Okay? So it should be as clear as it is to a layman. The best way is, if you are a medicine resident, give it to a surgery resident to read. If he can understand it, then your article is very clear. So the most dumb people are surgeons. Okay? If a surgeon understands, everybody will. So you give it to somebody else. Basically I'm saying is give it to somebody else to read, because whatever you have written, you know what you have written. But communication is for other person. So you need to find out what other people are understanding out of it. Okay. Okay. Then it has to be coherent. Coherent means the text has to flow. It cannot be bunch of sentences kept together. So the text need to flow. It should be appropriate, explicit. Then audience. Again, you have to see where are you submitting. If you are submitting to a Indian journal, your audience probably is the Indians who are going to read it. But today is a global age. If your journal is PubMed indexed, or is indexed, has an impact factor, or is a Scopus indexed, the whole world will read it. So then you don't have to crib about Indian audience. Then you have to tailor your paper according to the global audience. So you talk what is of interest to the people in mass throughout the world, rather than focus on what is important for people in India. Okay. Then there are legal and ethical issues I'm not touching upon, but the most important one is conflict of interest. If you take money from somebody, don't praise him. Conflict of interest. So if a company is funding your trip to conferences, which they will not do legally now, they'll do illegally, make sure that you are not talking about his product or their products. And so one is conflict of interest, which is a issue. Second issue is don't plagiarize and don't use AI. So plagiarism is not accepted by anyone. Now, if you ask me what is the level of plagiarism which will be accepted to me, I'll say 0. Okay. So university accepts kitna? 10%. But I will not accept even 10%. Now, there are certain sentences which everybody will be speaking or writing in the same way. If I have to ask your name, what will I say? What is your name? When you have to ask my name, what is your name? So there are sentences which are common sentences which are used, and usually they are not counted as plagiarism. So even if they are coming in, they will come in. Like if you do a plaque check on any of my article, you will find my name will be coming as plagued. So name cannot be plagued. Institutional affiliations cannot be plagued. But when you take my article and run it on a plaque check, those are the things which will come on plaque. So we don't count them. We remove them. We say don't count it. Bibliography we never count because somebody or the other would have cited the same paper somewhere.
So sometimes common drug names, like my thesis it happened that I done it we used the text with common drug. Every time the drug was taken, that drug name came as flag.
Because you are searching the literature with a single word duplicated.
In the thesis which we submitted.
No. Basically, when you are doing a plaque check, you have to describe how big a string you want to be tested. So if you describe it as a 3-word, then only when 3 words match, it will show. If your drug name is showing, that means it is matching word by word.
Usually word plagiarism is not the problem because protein will be protein, drug name will be other name.
So normally what we do is we normally put it as a 5 words. So when 5 words come together, we say it is plagiarized. So if you are going to put word by word, then some word will be plagiarized. Is, are, them, they, he, she, everything will be plagiarized because there is no other way you can call them by any other name. Protein will be protein, like sir said. Okay.
Another thing is, suppose the name of the institutional committee, like this study is approved by BHU ethical committee. So that definitely come as a plagiarism because many paper published. So some common things is there. But
So-
I would suggest to checking for plagiarism, don't put your reference, name, affiliation.
Yes.
That's exactly.
And if you are citing somebody for social science and other places where you want to cite somebody, okay, put it in a double inverted comma. Okay, it will not be counted as a plagiarism. Gandhi said, ahimsa is good. Ahimsa is good. Put it in a double inverted comma, it will not be counted as plagiarism. Because you are quoting somebody. You are saying Gandhi has said, I am not saying. So as long as you don't steal Gandhi's line and speak, everything is fine. इसीलिए जितने लोग बोलते हैं वो यही बोलते हैं मोदी जी ने ये कहा. कोई अपने को नहीं कहता कि मैं कह रहा हूं. Okay? So once you attribute it to somebody, it is not a plagiarism because you are attributed. Plagiarism is when you try to take credit for somebody else's lines. So in the ethical issue, one of it is this. Second, how many of you are from with MBBS degree? Okay. And how many of you from PhD side? How many of you working on humans? Okay, good number. The records of your thesis, the hard copy as well as soft copy, has to be retained for 15 years. Okay. Last year there was a issue in Department of Anesthesia, and when the hard copies were or the hard copies were called, a paper was submitted somewhere. Editor found some errors and he asked for the hard copies. The boy said that he was shifting and then there was a rainfall and all his data is washed off in rain. तो इंडिया में बहुत कॉमन प्रॉब्लम है, आग लग जाती है ऑफिसों में, बाढ़ आ जाती है, पानी आ जाता है, चूहे खा जाते हैं. This should not happen. You have to make sure that every data that you are producing, your hard copies, your soft copies, is stored for next 15 years. This is minimum required by the ethics committee. So that means if you are publishing in 25 till 2040, anyone can call and check your data. And it is basically responsibility of the consultants. Like in my department, if you come, there are 2 almaris full of performers, hard copies. Sir, no sir, it has to be transferred to the institute.
Then the institute will be responsible.
Yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. Institute is responsible, sir. Institute is responsible when it is handed over to the institute.
And another thing, many times now, no one is using the soft copy. Maximum tool like a tab-based data collection is there.
उसमें हार्ड कॉपी नहीं होगी सर.
So then,
लेकिन उसमें जो ओरिजिनल फाइल बनेगी सर्वर पे फाइल बनेगी सर एसक्यूएल में, वो फाइल चाहिए.
वो मेल में मिल जाएगा.
नहीं, मेल में नहीं मिलेगा सर एसक्यूएल फाइल. वो डाटाबेस में मिलेगा सर्वर पे जहां वो डाटा जा रहा है. Then that file has to be submitted. हाँ,
Not extract.
हाँ, that has to be submitted. And electronic files में there are logs. So whenever you make a change, that log, it is logged that at this hour this particular person changed this value. It is, and the person who is entering usually is not able to change the values. जैसे आप शॉपिंग करने कहीं जा रहे हैं, आपने कपड़ा खरीदा, उसने बिल काटा, बिल में एरर हो गई, या आपने कहा कि नहीं अभी नहीं लेंगे, उसको बिल कैंसिल करना है. Then the person who is making the bill cannot cancel the bill. He has to call his manager or supervisor who will log in with his ID and then will make the change. So that change which is being made is logged in a log file on the server, and that log file is also needed to show that no change has been done since the original data is collected. So that log file is important.
But sometimes when you manage the missing data, clean the data.
सर वो ओरिजिनल डाटा फाइल में नहीं होगा ना सर.
हाँ.
वो तो ओरिजिनल मांगता है ना, हार्ड कॉपी में नहीं होगा. अगर मिसिंग डाटा है तो मिसिंग डाटा होगा.
But वो मैच नहीं करेगा.
मैच नहीं करेगा, पर वो पेपर में आपने लिखा होगा ना कि हाउ डिड यू हैंडल द मिसिंग डाटा, हाउ डिड यू हैंडल द मिसिंग डाटा. हाँ, तो लीगल इश्यूज में और एथिकल इश्यूज में यही दो चीजें मेन है, कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट एंड एथिकल अप्रूवल, प्लेगरिज्म, जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है, जिसके लिए लगातार प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं.
सिस्टमैटिक रिव्यू करो, नथिंग टू से.
I was about to say that.
In systemic review, you don't have to keep anything.
I was about to say that.
Everything is published already. Data is available on the papers which are published. You have simply extracted.
But very carefully, when you misinterpreted the finding, the author will be read the paper and write you mail. No, उनका एक publication आ जाएगा, correspondence.
So among the things which need to be accurate, you have to make sure that data is accurate. As I said, it's very important, because if your data is wrong, your findings are wrong, your interpretations are wrong. So one decimal here and there will change the whole story. So you have to be very sure that your data which you are entering is correct. Style accuracy depends upon which journal you are planning to submit. So each journal will have a different style, a little bit different. Most of the journals like Springer takes generic articles. So if they are IMRD, typical IMRD, they will take it. But some journals are very particular that they want it in that format. So for that, you have to make style accuracy. The most of the changes which journal require in style is how in-text citation is there of the references. If you are using Gitaro, Mendeley or EndNote, it is a 1-minute job. Okay. Okay. We have to describe the function and purpose. So here you are describing the original research. You have reviewed the literature and you are providing an overview of the topic. And again, coming to how your work is different from what is available. So as I said, that when we are doing a literature search, also see Cochrane database to find out if there is a meta-analysis on this topic or not. If you find a meta-analysis, no problem. You have to simply, I had been asked a lot of questions, a meta-analysis published in 2010. Can I do it again? Yes, you can. Even if a single article has been published since the last meta-analysis, you can do it again. So your justification is that since the last meta-analysis, this clinical trial has published, and hence I am doing a updated meta-analysis. Simple. But you have to define meta-analysis. Structure we talked about, IMRAT. I think all of you know IMRAT. Okay. Prisma ma'am has talked, so I will not be talking about Prisma. Whatever the components are in Prisma has to be in your manuscript, And in the Prisma checklist, you have to fill in the page number on which that particular statement or that particular thing comes. And that checklist has to be submitted as a supplementary file. And Prisma flowchart has to accompany every meta-analysis or a systematic review or a cost-effective analysis, wherever the literature has been searched. Okay, so the first figure in your systematic review is always the Prisma chart, because it is part of the methods. Your forest plot, your funnel plots are part of results. So they will be 2 and 3. But this is first. How many articles came on your first hit? What on applying filters, how many came? After the title search, how many left? After the abstract search, how many left? How many full text you read and how many you included? So this is part of the methods or early part of the result, either way. So first thing in the results is this only. So my meta-analysis includes 6 studies with this many participants. Okay. Where to publish? This is something which is very difficult to decide. I normally start with a journal with the highest impact factor, and most of the time it will be rejected in a day. So you submit it to a less impact factor, it will be again rejected till you find somebody who takes up your article. Okay. Normal time frame for acceptance of an article from the time it is written is about a year. If you do it before that, you are lucky.
But these days you have journal finder also in Springer. So depending on the areas where you are working or publishing, it suggests a few.
Yeah, it suggests, but then if it will usually suggest you 2 kind of a journal. One where there is a APC has to be placed. So the first journal that any submission site will show you will be a journal where there is a author APC.
Is there any site where we know which are like more non-APC and APC?
Oh, they all have.
DOAJ is the website.
All have. If you go to Springer and ask them the hybrid journals, they will tell you how many hybrid journals they have. Every site will tell you. Willy will tell you. Springer will tell you. If you
Sometimes
ask Google,
call for papers.
huh.
So sometimes it is open free. That time you can submit.
So majority of the problem is APC. Okay. So higher impact factor.
If you are submitting a proposal, please don't forget to put, the cost of publication in the end. It can come as a miscellaneous or dissemination or whatever you call it.
This is for submitting the research proposals.
Yeah.
So if you are for funding, if you are submitting to ICMR or DBT, include that 4 lakh rupee cost, because it is going to cost you 4 lakh rupees in a good journal, maybe more. Some of the journals are charging up to 8,000 US dollars for publication, so that is 8 lakhs. Good journals. So do include it and ask your funding agency to fund for it. They will not do.
Many journals are there also, please, not to fear. So if your research quality is good, you can have a free journal. Else we have free journal. That don't give for open access. No, then subscription based, then you can get it. So we have many paper also which are that more than 10 impact factor free. If you try something for WHO bulletin, no publication fees. Many journal are there, but you have to rightly choose and think that.
You have to
You
choose.
should not compromise that for publication fees will be.
And we are trying. We try. We normally get something like, if you read my Twitter, I get a rejection every day. Every morning when I open my mail, there will be one rejection. Because right now we have, I think, 25 papers in public submission. We have about 25 papers in submissions. And रोज कोई ना कोई रिजेक्ट होके आता है, रोज हम उसको अपलोड करते हैं. This is part of life. It happens every day, because finding a right journal right now is very difficult. And we normally try groups like MDPI, which do not have that good a reputation as a publisher. Hindvi. So we trying to avoid that. So we are basically focusing on good publishers like Wiley, Elsevier, the Springer, the publishers with reputations.
MDPI is taking good amount also. MDPI also.
MDPI is cheaper, sir, 2000 Swiss
For
francs.
student also it is quite
They give 40% on 2000 Swiss francs. So that is about 2 lakh rupees, and they give you 50%, so about 1 lakh.
yeah.
That is their cost. But they do give discount. And Springer is giving discount. Springer has given us a lot of discount, like 100% discounts they have given to some of our manuscripts. So they do give discounts. It's not that they don't. If there is a APC, they will not publish free. But then it is a risk that you have to take, because that decision on APC will come only when your article is accepted. So your article may get accepted and they may not give you a waiver. Then you are stuck. Then you have to withdraw and submit somewhere else. So that is why we don't. Okay, all of you know what scientific data may be incorrect. That's my last slide. So we are doing this exercise to make sure that the scientific data that goes out in the world is good, solid. So if your experimental design is poor, your data is poor. The easiest example we give is like if you are going to make say a normal saline, you have to weigh the sodium chloride. Depending upon the error of the machine on which you are weighing it, the molality of the solution will change. So it's a very simple. Whether you have a picogram error or a microgram error or a gram error, okay. So if your design is wrong, if your inappropriate assays are there, then it is going to fail or give you a wrong results. If your hypothesis is inappropriate, results will be inappropriate. Bad instruments, calibration. This is something which is very important. My wife is a pathologist. When she reaches in the morning to the lab, her first job is to calibrate the instruments and run a QC. Till the time they have a QC and a calibration done, they do not run any patient samples. So if your instrument has an error or your instrument is having a problem and you are measuring on it, all your experiments will be carrying the same amount of errors. So that is why it is important to keep calibrating your machines, keep doing the internal QC, and I'll say do external QC also. Send the same sample to somebody else to run it and see whether your machine is doing it well or not. Sloppy science is a big problem because most of the people who are doing science are not doing science. We have some great stalwarts even in BHU who publish something like 50 articles a year. So you can imagine how much time they take to do one study. You can do Google, you can find out. One person has done 56 articles last year, 365 days. So he is producing an article every how many days? 7 days. Every week. Is it possible? Not possible. You cannot generate that much of a data. You cannot even write in 7 days.
When you are residents, do collection.
So that is a sloppy science. And I'm teaching you all this because it is important. Because the cost of all this is borne by no one else but the people of the country. Inappropriate analysis. So that is where statisticians comes. You should always do an appropriate analysis. What is appropriate? If it is a continuous data, do not apply kindly chi-square test. Inappropriate interpretation, that is what I was talking to you. Learn how to interpret the results. Don't learn how to run what is the mathematical function behind a test. But once a statistician gives you a result, kindly learn how to interpret it. Okay. This is redundant publication is just one thing that I have put in. Whatever is produced in one experiment should go in a one paper. don't try to break it into two. Sometimes your experiment is so big or has 3 or 4 objectives, then normally each objective should go as one paper. Sometimes you have so much of data within the one objective, then you have to submit as part 1 and part 2. In the title itself, you write part 1, part 2, so that the editor knows that this particular data is in two parts. Okay. Otherwise, it's considered as misconduct. I think that is all. Okay.
And don't publish it in multiple journals. We have seen
Don't
many
submit at the
times
same time to 2 journals. It's a bad habit.
same paper is published in multiple journals.
You should not submit also. You submit one journal unless and until clear-cut decision is there. Don't submit in the other
Yes.
journal. It's a plagiarism. Is that delaying too much, like 1 year?
Still
2 years they delay. You can withdraw. You can write the mail.
You can withdraw and submit.
withdraw, but you cannot.
You can withdraw, but you cannot resubmit. Okay.
There is a mechanism they have now linked with ORCID ID. They get to know somehow.
Not urgent.
फिर भी होता है बहुत. No, many journals are not indexed. No.
No, they cannot. Most of them, they can search within their own system. Like if you submit to Elsevier and Springer, there is no way they can talk to each other.
Yeah, it's not linked.
But if you submit to 2 Springer journals, they will know.
No, even they don't know also, it is not a
Good practice.
It is not a good practice.
I am in review editor and editor in the group of journal. I'll not name them, but you know that there is some mechanism, the trend, how to do. It is the editor responsibility.
So basically,
Sometimes reviewer also give comments. They will reject straight cut based on that already is there. But editor responsibility is that they will have to check.
And don't be disappointed if multiple rejections come.
Yes.
लगे रहो कहीं ना कहीं तो हो जाएगा.
so I'm just quickly going to show you one of the thing which has been submitted by us, and the basic purpose is to show you how it is organized. So the first page is called title page. It has all the authors, it has all the people. Zoom. Okay. So you have introduction, you have abstract. Now most of the journals request a structured abstract. So when they ask for a structured abstract, it has introduction, material, results, and conclusion sections. Then it has ethics and dissemination. So because it is a meta-analysis, ethical approval is not required, and it has a Prospero registration number at the bottom of the abstract itself. So we are telling that this is registered at this number. Then there is a introduction because it is comparing 2 heart valves. So it has a basic introduction of what is a valvular heart disease, how many people are affected, how many people require surgery. So basically it is on cost effectiveness. So what is the magnitude of the problem that we are talking about, or how many heart valves are replaced every year is important, because the cost will depend upon, or the cost effectiveness of cost will depend upon that. So it talks a little bit about that. Introductions. Title is comparison of bileaflet and tilted.
Remember the Prisma checklist 27.
It's comparing 2 heart valves, two heart valves, mechanical heart valves. And when we come at the end of the introduction, we describe our aim, that what is our aim, okay, and we say that what are the things, outcome measures that we have looked at. So we have looked at complication, we have looked at mortality, we have looked at survival, and we have also looked at cost. So 4 things. Then we talk about material method. In the material method, again the first line comes, it follows the Prisma guideline and has been registered on Prospero. So this is the first thing that you have to communicate to your readers, that you have followed the Prisma guidelines and you are registered on Prospero. Second things in material comes the search strategy. Okay. So because the search strategy is small, search strategy is mentioned here itself. If the search strategy is big, then it goes as a supplementary or annexure file. This is small. It's not even one paragraph, 5 lines, 7 lines. So if I can adjust it within my length of the article, it's fine. Otherwise, it goes as supplementary. So this is one of the things you can remove to reduce your length of article. Okay. Then it describes what are the studies included, both retrospective and prospective. And then it says total 839 after duplicate removal. There will be things, total, this is not the number included. Then the screening process. This is again standard of reporting. 2 people did it. Third was resolving the conflict. So 3 people. And you have to include the name who are the 2 people who did it. Prisma flowcharts usually are not part of the manuscript, they are submitted separately. All figures and tables are submitted separately. So the manuscript में होगा, figure लिख के आएगा, but then it will not be within the manuscript. Some journal take, like Elsevier on Snap now takes images in the file, but some people don't take it. So when we are making a generic, we keep the figures and the tables separate. References will be given. Then it talks about PICO, inclusion, exclusion. Quality assessment is done by NOS. Okay. And quality assessment is done by these 2 people. Got it? So you have to say which author has done the extraction, which author has done the quality assessment. So all those things has to come. This is cost effectiveness. So we have a Markov model in it. Then data extraction. What are the data which you have extracted? You have to describe what are the parameters that you have extracted. Then statistical analysis, which will tell you what has been done. So you have to define what are the statistical analysis that you have done. And it says it has been done on Revman Web. So you have to describe the software which you have used to do your statistical analysis. Okay. Then it talks about cost effectiveness analysis, that how did we calculate the ICER. It talks about how we calculate CER. And then it comes to results. So total of 2656 articles were initially retrieved on our search strategy. And from that we reduce to come out to 14, which are included in the meta-analysis and given in figure 1. So figure 1 will be flow chart of the Prisma showing how we reached from 2656 to 14. Okay. Then description of included studies. So you have to describe क्या क्या स्टडी इंक्लूड की, उनके स्टडी पार्टिसिपेंट्स कौन थे, उनकी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स, बेसिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स क्या थी. So it is describing that there are 14 studies, 3 from India and Japan, followed by 2 from US and 2 from Germany, 2 from Italy, 1 from South Korea. So geographical distribution of these 14 studies. Then it is talking about 5 studies used Zork-Schilly valves, and Meditronics was used in 4 and TTK Chitra was used in 2. So it is describing which valves were used. Then in the by leaflet, all of these use St. Jude mechanical valve. So we are describing हमारे कंपैरेटर क्या थे और किससे हम कंपेयर कर रहे थे, वो क्या हमने दिए. तो इसमें 3 डिफरेंट तरह के वॉल्व थे, इसमें एक वॉल्व था. Okay. Then table 2 describes the assessment. Then the quality assessment described in table 3. And scores are described here, which are the good articles, which are the bad articles, and what were the scores. Then model structure is defined here. Model inputs is defined here. How we input the transition possibility, and then the meta-analysis results. That what is shows. And then the cost-effective analysis results, and then the discussion. So let me just take a minute to show you the tables. So first table is a PICO. This is how. Let me reduce it. View. Okay. So it is describing author's name, year, country, type of study, prospective randomized, retrospective, prospective randomized, number of patients in tiltal valve versus bileaflet valve, and कौन सा valve उसने यूज किया है, कौन से valve को कंपेयर किया है किस valve से. Got it? So this is the baseline characteristics. Then Newcastle Ottawa, you can put it as a separate study, or you can just take this column and put it in the first table which I showed you. Make one more column and put NOS score there. That also you can do. And then this is how the transition probability, this has not been taught to you, so leave it. And I'll just show you the Prisma you had asked. So this is Prisma. So this is how you define Prisma. And this is the kind of forest plot that you get. So if you see, all first 3 are not significant. And then there is a lot of other smaller graphs that you are getting comparison. So with this I'll end, and as Dr. Ranjan is here, so I'll request him to please continue with a little bit of R and how to do the meta-analysis in R. So I'll request him to show you and teach you 2 things. You open your laptops and do. One is pooled odds ratio, and second is pooled mean standard deviation. Pooled mean. Isn't it, sir? Rest of the things are too difficult, so we'll not be able to teach.